And I'm really excited about this topic. This is certainly one that I believe is going to suit most business owners for wherever you are in your marketing and business walk. In essence, from early stage and startup through emerging business. Certainly, this concept of using email to market and most importantly to sell it's been around for some time, but it's still, for some reason, a very strange bear in that we still struggle sometimes to really use it to its fullest potential. So in the next 34 minutes or so, my plan is to help you kind of get past the challenges around that. First off, I recognize some of you may be joining me for the very first time, so I want to just formally introduce myself. I've been working over the last 10 years as pretty much a small business developer and entrepreneur development person. In essence, I've been dedicated to marketing strategy and small business development. And my greatest mission is to equip entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurially minded to become the best marketers and managers of their messages. So a great deal of my work in this field has been around helping business owners pitch and communicate their businesses and what it is they do and why it matters, as well as really understanding how to close sales, especially through follow-up. And that's what we're going to be focusing on this evening. A great deal of my work is twofold, really. I get to work with small businesses directly in nearly over 27 different industries to date, but I also get to partner with several organizations as well as companies that are looking to educate as well as assist small businesses. Groups like Capital One, as they have a program called Getting Down to Business, Goldman Sachs, 10,000 Small Businesses, and several others. I live and work in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's the southern part of the United States. And I'm really, really excited to share a little bit about what we'll be doing tonight. Just a warning, though. A lot of what I do comes from my engineering background. That's a little bit different from many people who operate in the field that I do. I worked as a mechanical engineer for close to a decade before going to business school and embarking on the career that I get to do now. So when I approach marketing and building a business, there's usually a very logical flow to it. For those of you who don't like step-by-step, I promise you, you will not get bored. I like looking at templates and formats and automating things to make them simple because I recognize that entrepreneurs are the busiest people on the planet. But it is certainly a great deal of where I come from. So here's what we're going to embark on this evening. I'm going to talk a little bit, and I'm sure if you've checked your inbox over the last week or so, you'll see there's a lot of changes with Google and its Gmail, and Yahoo has done some things as well. I'm going to talk about that impact on email marketing and specifically what it is you should be doing about it. I'm going to really dedicate a great deal of time to the three email marketing strategies that are working today to generate first-time and repeat buyers. I want to delve just really the top level of getting your emails opened and read instead of deleted and reported as spam. There's so much, again, that's changed in this arena. So I want to talk a little bit about how to make sure you're really getting things delivered. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about my first webinar, three-part, I should say, webinar that I'll be offering in August on email marketing, especially automating your email marketing. So I hope you'll stay tuned with me to really talk a little bit about that. So first, I want to talk a little bit about how to get your emails opened and read, because ladies and gentlemen, regardless as to what you are or are not doing, the idea of embarking on email is all about getting it noticed and getting it seen. And whether you have toyed with how to use email to really market your business, or perhaps you're already full in and on some level have communicated or do communicate with prospects or customers, it's really important that you stay up and stay abreast on knowing how to make certain your information is actually being consumed. And so I'm hoping to be a resource for you in that. First off, to actually get opened and read, you certainly want to make certain you're setting the expectation from the very beginning. At the point that someone either opts into your list, and when I use the term opt-in, I mean from a website or perhaps from even a text message when they decide to be on your list, or if you've met them and collected business cards and you now somehow put them into your database, into a list, it's really important to help them know what in the world you're going to do with their email. We live in a time where, honest to goodness, most of us probably have at least two emails. One that's really serious that we check, and then kind of the dummy email, like I like to call it, so we can get all the freebie stuff or communicate when we don't want people to bug us. Email is no longer something that people feel they can simply just give away. They really want you to earn it. And at the point you have, it's important that you help people to know that you will communicate with them. Also, you want to help them know what you're going to communicate with them, as well as how often. Is it going to be daily? Is it going to be monthly? Is it ever so often? The reason why this is so important is so that you are getting them really set up to understand when and how they'll really hear from you. Once again, I think about people sharing their emails, and they sincerely don't know if they're going to get, as this graphic shows here, email overload, or if they'll just never hear from you. So setting the expectation is really important out of the gate, and it's important to getting your emails, as I mentioned, opened. The second way to make certain your emails are actually read is to make certain that they're personalized. And what I mean by that is, as often as you can, you want to make certain that your from address is certainly listed as some person or organization or company that the person recognizes. So often, I know I work with business owners that struggle with kind of having a true face to their business. Is it that it's from the business name, or is it from them, the person? I like the very personable approach, because at the end of the day, whether you sell to consumers or to businesses or even to the government, you're doing business with another person. And so at the point there's this recognition of who you are through the eyes of your company, then it's really important, and people are going to know, once again, not just what to expect, but who to expect. So making certain that your from is from who you are and or your company name is very important, and keeping that consistent. The other side around personalization, though, is being able to utilize software that allows you to use the person's name within the emails. One of the things that I really like about what are called email service providers, ESPs, and these are software products such as Constant Contact, Aweber, Infusionsoft, and things of that nature. They make it really easy to use this personalization in the midst of sending emails. And I have to be honest with you, this used to be only a tactic that could be used by really large corporations and organizations. And I even was very surprised when I received an email message from my bank, no less, where I have dual accounts, actually more than two. And I actually got an email that said, Dear banking client. And I thought to myself, they have more information than most people who know me very well about me. So it was the strangest thing that they wouldn't even have my name in the email. You have that ability with many of the software, the tools that are available now. So I want to encourage you to use them. And I want to encourage you to use personalization as much as you can, meaning the more information you have on a person, the better you can personalize this message. And that really, ladies and gentlemen, is what it's about. Granted, everyone knows that there is software out there that does this, but you would be amazed at your ability to really get people to read what you're writing to them and get them to consume it by using this tactic. Another reason, or the third step around getting rid, is around asking people what it is that they really want. This is really often called segmenting, not the idea of asking, but doing something with the information that you collect. What you see here is an example of an email that I'd sent where I really had two different statements that allowed people to be in two different buckets, because I wanted to get a sense of who they are, what they are, and I could then know what type of content to feed them based off of who they were. This is what's called segmenting, and it based off of where they clicked or which of the two statements they clicked on. The email service provider that I use can then show me what people clicked which statement, and I can, as a result, know who they were, if they were statement 1 people or statement 2 people. And I could now generate different types of messages to them based off of that answer. This really gets into a little bit of the higher level email marketing, but it's actually a very simple piece to infuse into email just to be able to know what people want. The other really simple way is to ask them with perhaps a simple survey. And what's interesting is, in this example you're watching, I actually had each of these statements dump into a survey where I could collect even more information once they completed it. So the very simplest thing is to simply ask what it is they want to know, and the easier you make that, the better, which is why I give them kind of this multiple choice here. With knowing who they are, it gives me an idea of what they want, and then it goes even further than that by kicking them into an online survey that they can complete. Back to my idea of personalization earlier, I talked about the from, and of course, you're addressing the person by name. The truth is, you can pull any types of, these are called fields, into email. And here I'm showing where one field is the name of the company. And I once again close out the email with my personal signature. And so the big deal here is that email no longer has to be very formal. You can allow email to be as personable as a phone call. It'll never be a phone call, but you can certainly go beyond the generic group sent email, and you can certainly ask people what they want so that you can continue to supply them with information that they care about versus information you think they should care about. And I've got to tell you, when you think of this concept of surveying and really hearing and knowing what people want to know more about, it can absolutely make your marketing that much easier. The number 4 way and trick to getting your emails opened and read is to keep your list clean. The truth is, email marketing is very much in part about obviously the messages you're sending, but it's also about the people you're sending those messages to. And the ability to keep your list both accurate and clean and knowing who's opening, have they not opened in some time, is critical. A great example of why this is so important is what Yahoo did most recently. Basically, back on July 15th, they made the executive decision to actually close all of the accounts that had not been used or logged into over the past year. And what that means for those of you who may already have some type of email list, either in your basic email, personal email provider like a Gmail for businesses or Outlook, or even if you're using an email service provider like a Constant Contact or an Aweber or MailChimp, that means that it's possible that you have some people, if you've not done any type of list cleansing, you may have some people with Yahoo email addresses that are no longer attached to those emails. Now, truth be told, it was stated that only 7% of the inactive accounts had associated email addresses. But here's what you now need to do. You need to unsubscribe your unresponsive Yahoo subscribers. There are many ways to do this, and depending on what email service provider you use, you are able to learn what people that specifically had a Yahoo email address actually opened your email within the last year, and find out if they have not opened, you can unsubscribe them and make certain that your emails are not going either to the wrong people, because in most cases they're going to allow other people to adopt and grab these new emails, or to just simply be going someplace that's never going to be opened. Email marketing is about knowing and getting into a person's inbox first, and then having them open and take some call to action. But you're not able to do that if the list that you have is not as clean or as accurate as it can be. And so taking this simple step with cleansing your list, especially in this case if someone is not opened over the last year, and specifically around Yahoo subscribers that haven't, it's really going to be helpful. It's really important for you to know just who it is you're really marketing to. A large list size means nothing if it's an inactive one. The 5th concept around getting opened and getting rid is about asking to be what's called whitelisted. And whitelisted pretty much means that a person both okays your specific email to come into their inbox, and perhaps even adds you to their contacts list, so that you're no longer getting caught in the spam filters, but you are actually being recognized by whatever email service provider they use. Case in point, you may be aware, and perhaps you saw an email that I sent to you about some changes that Google made about its inbox. Basically, Google has made the executive decision to identify what messages are coming into your inbox if you're a user of Gmail or even any of the other Google for Business products. And they've identified several tabs. There are 5 to be exact that they now decide what messages belong in different tabs. Most often, if you're sending any type of email messages or e-newsletters, that normally will wind up going into the promotions tab. Now, that's not a bad thing necessarily, but certainly the primary tab is the tab that most people are probably going to check most often, and it's the tab that is going to be associated with so-called whitelisted or those emails and messages that are okayed by the person that owns the email address. The big deal here, ladies and gentlemen, is that you do want to request to be placed in the primary tab of the people to which you may be sending messages to. Now, I don't want to say that you should ask this just in general, but specifically if you have up to this point already started to have some type of ongoing communication with a list of any size and are concerned about your messages being received, it's as simple as a request. If you've not started yet, then this is a great start at the point you do begin to use email marketing and start emailing people to communicate what's going on in your business. It's a great idea initially once someone hops on your list that you ask them to whitelist you as well as to put you into their primary tab. So these are basically the things that you certainly want to be aware of to get your emails both into the inbox of potential customers and clients, as well as opened and finally read. Now I really want to transition and talk about the 3 key email strategies that generate buyers currently. Naturally, email is used in normal conversation and communication for all of us, but there are 3 particular strategies that exist to make certain that you are really generating buyers both first time as well as repeat. First off, you've probably received these or maybe sent them out, but the e-zine and the newsletter is certainly one type of email strategy. This is based on its counterpart, which is the printed newsletter. It's obviously sent online and most often is sent through, as I mentioned earlier, an email service provider. That certainly makes the job easier, and I encourage anyone, if they're interested in using e-zines or e-newsletters as they're called, to communicate with prospects, customers, and clients that you use an email service provider. An email service provider will allow you to not just build the list or your database of people, but it will keep your list clean, meaning if emails are put in incorrectly, it will actually correct those. It will tell you when those emails bounce. It will also be able to allow people to unsubscribe, which is another very, very key reason you want to use email service providers. I could equally, within that first section that I mentioned, talk about how to get your messages opened and read. Making the unsubscribe button and the unsubscribe option very visible in your message is also really important. But back to e-zines and e-newsletters. This strategy is very helpful when there's some level of consistency, both in the schedule of when it's sent out, as well as the layout of how the information is actually put on the page. The big deal about e-zines and e-newsletters is that they really only work when you have some type of ongoing schedule, be it monthly, twice a month, and in some cases I've seen people send one out each and every week. For some people, that can be a real content drain, meaning coming up with what to say every single month, making certain that it's outlined and laid out, can force you to work with a graphics person. There are many templates within email service providers that make this job much easier. And in essence, newsletters are used for visibility, showing up all the time. People may or may not read it, but knowing that they see it, they'll know and believe that you certainly are busy, that you're doing things, and that you're credible. E-zines are great for building relationships, great for using kind of your expert status, but they're really good for kind of doing things over time. You're going to want to have a combination of information in an e-zine, from sales to more of kind of the relationship builder. I think this is a very strong strategy. I still believe in it, but I also know that the challenges that come with an e-zine is simply having the time to put it together every single month or every single week or however often you do it. And if you're not doing this on some consistent basis, it could actually hurt you rather than help you. The second type of email strategy is the email single blast. Now, I'm sure you've gotten these from local retailers. Very, very common for those that are in product-based businesses, but equally can be common for service-based businesses as well. This is all about the sale. And so most often when you get an email blast or send one out, there is one particular subject matter. Maybe it is one product or one service you're trying to bring attention to, and you're trying to get people to do something. You're really trying to get them to take some action, most of the time buy something. The email blast is all about the sale, but it's also all about this just-in-time send out. The problem with email blasts is that if you are sending a potential blast to a person who has not gotten to know you yet, does not really know what it is you have to offer, you could be attempting to sell to them too soon. And if you're sending email blasts out often, then you may be bombarding your list with a very hard sell strategy. And this, ladies and gentlemen, could certainly lead to many, many unsubscribes or people requesting to get off of your list. Once again, it's all about setting the expectation, but you certainly want to manage the use of email blasts, especially those that are associated with kind of this buy now, sale, discount messaging. Not only does it perhaps get, as I mentioned, in front of a person who's not yet ready to purchase and could literally turn them off, but you also begin to train people to expect a sale, to expect a discount. And at that point, you almost get them to not purchase until they're urged to do so. So you really start to almost turn yourself into a commodity if you do not use this particular strategy wisely. It's still important, and I believe it's very much and should be a part of your overall email strategy, but you want to manage the email blast. Finally, the third, and quite frankly, my favorite type of email strategy is the use of the email automated series. And this goes by several names. Perhaps you've heard the word or term autoresponder, nurture sequence, drip marketing. These are all terms that are used for any type of automated series. And by series, I mean there are several messages that are developed ahead of time. And every person on your list, whether you have one person or 100 people, is literally goes from message to message to message based on whatever sequence you choose in between. So if a person, Mary, begins message 1 on Monday, August 1st, and John now gets on board on August 5th, he still also starts with message 1. So regardless as to when a person becomes a part of your list, they get the same messages in the same sequence. This is really powerful because what it allows you to do is kind of, and I hate to borrow this from the infomercial world, but it gives you the set it and forget it opportunity. The other side of an email automated series is that it allows you to do all of the pieces that the other types of email strategies do. It certainly allows you to build a true relationship with a person. You choose when they really are going to get anything relative to a sale. It also allows you to obviously sell and allows you to understand what it's going to take for a person to respond to some call of action, so you can then know if they should remain in this automated series or if you should turn them on to a different one. And I know this may sound like a lot, but the big deal here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the automated series saves you time because you said it once, but it also buys you additional time and potential money by allowing people to really walk through a series of conversation and communication from you. and it's very controlled. Unlike the e-zine, which could be any type of information, and a person can hop on and they only get what the latest e-zine was or what the latest blast was. In an automated series, everyone starts at the same point and ends at the same point. As I mentioned, the great thing is that you get the best of all worlds. You get the sales, you get the visibility, and you get the opportunity to build a relationship in a very controlled way, where once again it's set up once, and by using email, it's able to be launched as the person based on when the person actually joined your list or became a part of it. So let me talk a little bit more about this email automated series, because again, this is where I believe the greatest opportunity exists for business owners, and yet it's the one that I see used the least effectively. So there are several types of follow-up, and that's really all an automated series is. It is a means of follow-up. If you've ever tried to sell something, you know about the importance of following up. We are naturally designed in business to know when a person is a hot lead and very interested. We know to contact and communicate with them first. Whereas when a person does not seem incredibly interested, that they are not as high a priority. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, comes in when that so-called hot lead is unresponsive or may not really be part of the market and the audience you really want to target. Or perhaps they are ready, just not right now. And the big question is, what do you do? Most of us simply move on to the next hot lead or perceived hot lead. There are several types of follow-up, several ways to be able to follow up with different customers and clients. And this is true regardless as to whether you have a service-based business, like being a CPA or a graphic designer or even a trainer, or a product-based business where you perhaps have skincare products, paper products, or air conditioners. There are several types of follow-up that are specific to all of these types of businesses. But I've identified there are 4 specific types that fit across service and product-based businesses. And I want to talk a little bit about all of them and really just kind of hone in a little bit on the types of follow-up you should be setting up. These types are basically what your email automated series should be built around. It's really all about the who, the person. And you can now build different types of email automated series based off of these types. So first and foremost, there's the inactive customer. Greatest opportunity really exists with the customer that has worked with you once or purchased from you once, but hasn't in some time. It is much easier to bring back a customer that already knows you, likes you, trusts you, and unless there was a major screw up or very bad ending to the relationship, you can woo them again. That is the strongest type of follow-up that really exists to make certain it gets back into a sale. Second type, though, is post-purchase. After a person has made the purchase, paid the money, whether they've received the service, whether the product has been shipped or not, there's a great deal of opportunity. Most cases, this whole idea of not purchasing or not wanting to stick it out as far as follow-up is because there's the infamous buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse happens because there is no encouragement, there's no reinforcement of the purchase. So post-purchase is another great opportunity for an automated series or a type of follow-up. The third opportunity exists after an event. Whether you are focused on virtual events online or doing in-person networking, chamber meetings, seminars, association meetings, we recognize that face-to-face, first and foremost, is the strongest connection builder. What happens often, though, is that after that face-to-face meeting is over, it's very challenging to really drive it into business unless there's another face-to-face meeting that's planned. And what you want to do is allow every single meeting, be they in person or virtual, to be able to really know it's going to go someplace. And by someplace, I mean hopefully to a sale. But truth be told, a lot of marketing is simply recognizing who a person is and if they are indeed a fit for you. And so having an automated series after an event, especially those who use trade shows or, as I mentioned, networking socials to really generate leads and to generate interest, this is going to be an important type of follow-up, developing an automated series just built around events. And finally, this fourth type of follow-up that really does fit both service and product-based businesses alike is the cold inquiry, as I call it. When someone visits your website, when someone calls your location or your office, visits your location, sees an ad, maybe they don't have a reference point, and all of a sudden they have some level of interest, and you're trying to figure out what to do with them. They may not be ready once again to purchase. So you've got to figure out some way to build a relationship as well as identify if they're who you want to sell to and educate them until they are. This is certainly one type of follow-up that every business needs. And it's also the one where I see most people, unfortunately, waste a great deal of time trying to educate people only to kind of get this infamous no, or maybe you just don't even get a response at all. I'm sure you've had an example where someone has called or gone on the website and wanted more information and more information and more information. You feed it to them. You feed them the product specs of the furniture, or you feed them all of the service options, and they still don't buy. The reason is either A, they're really not ready, or B, they've not settled in their mind that you and or your product or service are the right fit for them. And again, this is where a very well built automated series can come into play. So I've talked about several things, the 3 email strategies that are really, really useful these days, as well as all of these types of follow-up. I now want to talk a little bit about this 3-part webinar that I have coming up that I'm really, really excited about. It's called Email Marketing Through Follow-Up, How to Turn Your Inbox into a Cash Box. And this really, ladies and gentlemen, is for entrepreneurs, salespeople, directors of sales, business development professionals, anyone who is responsible for turning so-called leads into actual customers and clients. There are 3 specific webinar-based trainings as well as a bonus Q&A training that are happening throughout the month of August. And I really am going to just open the kimono and literally talk all about not just what I've kind of broached the surface on around email marketing, but I'm going to dig deeply because my objective is that you walk away with everything you need to build at least one of these 4 types of follow-up or automated sequences I talked about. So let me get a little bit deeper as to who this really is for. We recognize that follow-up is important, and you recognize this as well, but you're not following up. You are perhaps making the first phone call, maybe the first email after whatever the meeting is, but you simply cannot keep up with the back and forth. Maybe you've done some email in the midst of maybe some newsletters, perhaps consistent, perhaps not. I've been there, trust me. Maybe you've not been consistent with emailing, responding, sending blasts. This, ladies and gentlemen, in my strongest opinion, developing an automated series, an email automated series, really should be the precursor. That should be the first type of email that anyone develops, because once again, it is something that is set and then it continues without you, especially with the use of email service providers and some of the tools. This training is for the person who has lots of business cards, or maybe you've got lots of calls and you've got that log sheet right by the phone, but you're still not able to transition these people into sales. And here's the truth. When someone is interested in a product or a service that you sell, they are going to purchase from someone. Hopefully it's not your competition. The only way to ensure that you have a very, very strong chance of being the one they choose is to make certain you're the one that's top of mind and in front of them at the point they're ready to make a decision. This is also for, and I've run into this, if you find that people are stuck on your prices versus your value. I'm sure you've had the example where someone calls and they want to know more about something and they just really want to know, well, how much does that cost? Hopefully you're smart enough to not just throw out numbers over the phone. But even so, it basically means that they are trying to use something to compare you with. And the truth is, price is never going to be the only thing you want to be a key deciding factor on if they work with you or purchase from you. Here's specifically, ladies and gentlemen, what's going to be taught through this three-part webinar. And I say 3 parts, it's 3 parts as well as an open Q&A session. First off, the 4 follow-up messages I just spoke about, I'm going to certainly go into more depth around those. I have what's called my 5 parts of email follow-up. It's the system that I use, and I will be identifying what is that system, the 5 parts of each of these types of follow-up automated series. This really is going to help you again to know what it is you need to do to set up each of these series for you and your business so you can see the results that you're looking to see. Some of you may not have really started email marketing in a strong way, and you may be just overwhelmed with all of the ways to use it, and more importantly, all of the tools, everything from the MailChimps to the Infusionsoft. Any of these services can go anywhere from free to $15 or $30 a month, all the way up to $300 a month. And you may be struggling with knowing what should you be using. I'm really going to break down all of these latest tools that are available, as well as how to decide which one to use and what they can do for you. You really do want to find a tool that's some hybrid between where you are and, more importantly, where you want to go. And I'm going to break that down really, really concretely, as it's an exercise I've not just gone through for myself, but also for other small business owners as they're attempting to jump into email marketing. The truth is, the tool is not the only thing to consider, but it's certainly a strong part, because it will either enable you to really do what you want, or it'll stop you in your tracks. The final big piece that I'll be discussing and really going through in the midst of this 3-part webinar are the specific messages, the wording, the copy, the language that you can use in your automated series. Now, this, I've got to be honest, is really priceless. Up to now, a great deal of my consulting work has been around developing those series for small business owners, customized series. And I'll be talking about specific messages that you can utilize and customize for yourself to develop your automated series. This is what I really believe is probably the price of admission, which incidentally is at this point only $149 until August the 6th, at which point it's going to turn into $199. But let me also mention all the other cool things you get. I've talked a lot about different terms where you are going to get a glossary of those terms, so that whether you're doing this yourself or you're going to give it over to a VA, a virtual assistant, or to your salesperson, they will they'll speak email marketing and know what these terms mean, so that in the midst of getting this pulled together, you'll really know how to do it. You'll get a resource list of tools and software. Some are free, some have payment that's associated with them to actually jumpstart your campaign. There are many things that are out there that can just make your job easier, even in the midst of an automated series. I already mentioned about the copy, the wording, the language. You'll be getting a true swipe file that you can customize for yourself so you can build your true campaign. And of course, you'll get the recordings and transcripts of all of the classes. If you're like me, I love listening and watching, but sometimes I like to read along, and you'll be getting both of those options. Now, one person has already taken up this particular option, but for the first 4 people, there were 5, but now there are only 4 left. You'll also get a 30-minute one-on-one with me, where I will review your campaign and give you my recommendations, my ideas, my thoughts. This alone, ladies and gentlemen, it comes under my sales review service, which runs currently for $185. But for the first 4 people, or let me say the next 4 people, because one person scooped this up from my private client list, for the next 4 people who do decide to jump in to this training, that is one of the pieces. My greatest objective is not just get you into action, but to get you real results. And because this is the first time I've actually done a training similar to this in this way, I too want to make sure you can get amazing results, because I know the power of automated marketing, and specifically with an email automated series. You can learn a great deal more about this particular option online, venturewalk.com/email marketing through FollowUp. It's a little long, but ventureloft.com/email marketing through FollowUp, and you can learn a great deal more about this training that's coming up in August, as well as snag your spot before the price goes up